Hey, 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 Fit Mama. Jen Oliver here, your host of the Fit Mama podcast. This is the work in to your workout. Hey, 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 Fit Mama. Welcome to this incredible episode. I am so excited to bring you Dr. Sindy Shin. She is the Calm Mama expert, and she created the Calm Mama method. And I can't wait to get into this chat with her because we get into some really great stuff that I think you will for sure be able to connect with regards to being a modern mom trying to escape the burnout that we see all around us. So she talks about self-nurturing, she talks about embracing and rocking mom life and beyond. So don't miss this as we chat about presence, about peace, about power in your motherhood journey. And this chat with Dr. Sindy Shin is so inspiring. I can't wait for you to hear it. Feel free to check the show notes where all the links to find Sindy, to join her community, and to download her awesome guide. If you don't already know, Sindy's guide that she shares, which is a modern mom's guide to break through mommy mental burnout. I can't tell you how valuable this is. Everything that Sindy produces is gold. She is absolutely fantastic. She helps so many moms around the planet, and she really, really is an inspiring woman to be around. You will love her. You will love this chat. Go and find her at the show notes links in your app or online. Thanks for being here. And here's Sindy and I. Thank you for being here today. We are with Dr. Sindy Shin from Calm Mama. And Sindy is one of my most favorite people, as I mentioned earlier. And I'm so excited to bring Sindy to you because Dr. Sindy is just a wealth of knowledge, and the conversations we have, every time I'm hanging out with her and talking to her, I'm like, we got to record this because this needs to go on the podcast because more people need to hear you and your message. So without further ado, let's have you say hi. Here we are with Sindy.
You're so funny. Hi, Jen.
Hi.
Thank you so much for having me. This is so fun.
It is a treat. It is a treat. And I know we're going to get into some good conversation today about everything that you do with your patients at your naturopathic clinic in Toronto, as well as with your clients online and all the work that you do with Calm Mama. So maybe start with telling us a little bit about what Calm Mama is. Because here at Fit Mama, we know it's a mindset and it's all about the heart and the brain working together. And I really want to hear what you're doing over at Calm Mama.
Yeah, well, thank you. And I think one of the reasons why our work kind of aligns so well is because it's the same. It's like Calm Mama is so much about the mindset, about how to feel centered and connected again. And it's about getting back to yourself. And so I feel like a lot of the foundations also stem from my work. For over 10 years, I've been seeing patients as a naturopathic doctor and really always focusing on stress and reducing the impact of stress. But then the transition to Calm Mama happened when after having my second boy. So I have two young boys.
Cutest little munchkins.
And and then I realized, so like people would always say I had this calm essence to me, or, Sindy, I don't know how you're so calm and zen all the time. But the reality of it when I had my second was I felt like I was falling apart on the inside, trying to balance it all, manage work, 2 babies, home, marriage, all this stuff, yet still present myself in a way professionally to my patients, to my clients, and keep this all together. And so I realized this wasn't working. And started to really pull from all the stuff I knew. How can I get back to me, feeling like me again? And so that's when this Calm Mama stuff was born, because I used these tools and these techniques and therapies for myself, which I know worked, but I didn't put them into practice.
Of course.
Because we are our own worst patients.
Yeah, right, of course. Well, I want to take it back a little bit because, that, we can skim over it, but it really is the most impactful time in our lives, that postpartum time when, maybe we coasted through the first baby because that was our sole focus. And, as a mother of two myself, I definitely know when you have two, you look back and go, whoa, having one was so easy, right? And you just look at yourself going, how did I ever complain or not manage it all or whatever? And then you get into this place where you have these two beings, plus, like you said, your spouse and job, etc. And it just becomes that anything could be the straw that breaks the camel's back.
Yeah.
And the stress, as you mentioned earlier, can be completely debilitating. And something as small as, someone not doing something right nearby you can end up in an explosion like no other.
Yeah.
So take us back to that time for you, because you said, I was pretty calm and people observed that I was calm. But then really what was happening was I was losing my mind. So talk to us about that.
Yeah, well, like exactly what you just said, it was kind of the first one. It was hard. Having a newborn and not knowing what you're doing and just being thrown into this motherhood thing. But then you're almost running off of this adrenaline and you just keep going.
I know.
And then it's almost as if rather than actually letting yourself recover is you get into this mode of, I'm just going to do it. I'm going to do everything. I'm going to do it all. And then the second one comes. And then, like you said, it's like, I describe it. I just recently wrote an article for a magazine and I described it as it feels like you're living in this tiny glass house where like any little thing could shatter and then your emotions would just burst. So if you ever feel like, someone's tiniest little word or comment and then you either get angry or you're like filled with rage or you're so sad or you cry and then people are like, wow, you're so emotional. But really, yes, you're emotional because you're just so done. You're so at your peak of the threshold of how much you can take. And so when I talk about Calm Mama, I always cover three bases: the physical stress that's happening to you, the mental load that mummies go through, but also the emotional. And then I find where the biggest transformations and breakthroughs happen is when we work on the emotional load, the emotional stress, because how many times can mothers really open up about what that feels like without the fear of being judged?
Totally. And who are they supposed to tell it to? Like, people either feel guilty that they can't help you, right? Like, I know that when my kids were young, and I live about 3 to 4 hours away from most of or all of my family, I have no family nearby. So it was relying on friends or people I paid, right, to help us out if my husband was out of town. And I remember feeling like I can't really tell anybody this because they'll have their own guilt that they can't be closer to help or that they can't do anything about it, or who do we turn to and where do we go, right?
Yeah. So I hear that so much, and I felt that the exact same way too. And I feel so grateful that I had this toolbox of knowing, okay, what resources can I go to? What have I learned through my training? What do I know works? And so I could pull from these. But then when I started working with other mothers, it was like that was one of the top things I would hear is they're just so grateful and they feel this sense of release and of tension that they're able to let these emotions out and have an ear that will listen to it that's empathetic. Because like you said, it's hard because we can't fully express ourselves because we don't want to make someone feel guilty that they're not there, or fall into this thing of, if that mom can do it, why can't I?
Comparison.
The
biggest thief of all our joy. Oh my gosh. Yes, the comparison is real. So these all add to the stresses. And I like what you said earlier about your work, and especially with Calm Mama, is about reducing the impact of stress. It's not reducing stress because we're all going to be exposed to stress, right? I mean, what some of the stressors that your clients come to you with, sure you can talk to this. I mean, what are people under? What are people coming to you with?
Yeah, so that's exactly it. Is we can't always change the stress in our lives. Most times we can't actually, but we can change how we respond to it, the impact it has on us physically, mentally, and emotionally. And so I would say like the top three that come to mind that I hear most often is stress is within the home, number one. There's a tension within the home because emotions are running so high. All the attention is now being given to the children or the babies, and there's this feeling of being pulled in so many different directions, so much so that you're getting lost of like, but where am I in all of this? So that's stress of the demands of work, life, baby, home balance.
Work outside the home for women more than ever, right? And I recently read a statistic. I think 63% of women are the primary breadwinner in the family.
Yeah, it's shifting. Like I've seen that. I've heard that stat, similar studies or surveys being done. I hear it on like, so when I'm home with my little guy, because I'm home with him a few days a week, yes, I watch talk shows and I love it. And that keeps coming up because a lot of the hosts are actually moms and they're working and they talk about their stress. And the interesting thing is how hard moms are working and almost expected to be really just fine doing it on a stress level. Like, well, they can do it. They can do everything. And
because they can doesn't
because
mean
they can.
they should.
Exactly. And so one of the things that I speak about in the Calm Mama with my Calm Mama clients is really just about, we can't actually do everything.
No.
So that's a myth.
Yeah.
But it's this almost like this facade we put on. But I do firmly believe we can absolutely do anything. So you can't do everything, but you can do anything. But it's what is that anything that you want?
Yeah.
Right.
And are we choosing or are we stuck with it? Because the emotions that come with choosing versus the emotions that come with being stuck are so vastly different.
Yeah. And like, I get it. Like I speak to so many who, they're like, well, they can't always choose. Sometimes they can't, whether it's a workplace or they can't choose who their coworkers are who stress them out all day or who their boss is.
Right.
Ideally we would love to, or we can't choose our living environment all the time or the people in our family that just, drive you up the wall and say the things that make you want to cry all the time. Yeah. But you can
You're
make
not
it.
speaking from any experience on that one, are you?
No, wow. I'm going to scratch my head on that one. But I would say, but we can shift the way that it impacts how we feel. So that doesn't break us down all the time. But when you really feel centered, connected to who you are, and really confident in your capabilities of what you can do and all these things, altogether, what that will do in the end is give you that strength again to be able to face these things. So I always say, like, when I talk about Calm Mama, what is it? It's feeling centered, connected, and confident for whatever comes your way. Because we all know you could have the perfect day and then something will just
throw you right off.
But then instead of throwing you off is being able to catch yourself so that you're not spinning out of control.
Love that. So how do we go about? So let's talk about these tools that you teach. I mean, I know you have a program that you work with people, which is amazing because having someone, especially like yourself, to hold your hand as you go through, the steps and tools, it's just next level. But what are some of these tools? For someone listening today who's saying, okay, I am finding that I definitely go off the handle. Like, what does that mean to be centered and how do I do that?
Yeah, well, it's a process of learning for sure, but I would say the first pillar that we focus on in the program is presence. So how do we get that? And we go through, really getting deep on what that looks like for you, what that would mean to you and your family to have more presence. Because I have 3 daily reminders that I tell mothers that no matter what, is they need to tell themselves this every single day.
Okay.
And the first one is, above all, I'm human. I'm a human being. So don't expect perfection.
Yeah.
Number 2 is, your presence is enough. And so when we talk about presence is we often are doing so much, and that could be simple things like I could be doing the dishes, but my mind is looking at this floor that has toys all over and the couch that has breakfast smeared on it and all these things. And then, but also thinking about all the 50 million things that I need to get done that day. But in that moment with my 2-year-old looking at me and playing with his toys, how to find that presence so that in that moment, rather than fixating on the overwhelm, is finding joy in that moment. And that is one of the key ways of bringing back to center, is how to find these things that bring you back.
Yeah. Because you know what? I remember reading something that the things you look back on in your life that you remember aren't always the weddings and the, big events, parties and this and that. It's those day-to-day things that you look back on so fondly. Like me and my 2-year-old stuck at home in a snowstorm when I was sitting there freaking out about stuff, and why wasn't I just enjoying him more, right? Yeah. And I love that kind of always brings us back down to grounding and that centering where we go, what is really important? I always ask people, in 5 years, is this going to matter? Yeah, so you're probably going to get a new couch in 5 years. That stain, you'll do your best to scrub it out and moving forward, right? It'll all get done. Those things will all get done. But if we don't look up and we don't take the time to get back to that place, I mean, wow, we miss it, right? And with the statistics of depression and anxiety right now on the rise the way they are, and that we're noticing that thoughts about the future can produce a lot of anxiety, and a lot of thoughts about the past can produce a lot more depressive symptoms because we're powerless to the past. It's done. What do we do to change? Oh my God, the regret. So being in that presence, I cannot even emphasize how important that is. What a beautiful space to be in too.
And that's why that's like the first thing, the foundational thing that we do together, so that once you have that, then the other things can come into place. But we need to create that space of presence first. And it's one of those things too, like you said, and I get this vision of like if you envision a tornado that's just spinning, and that's sometimes how we feel, like the world is spinning around us. Absolutely. But then how do you find that center in it where
everything's calm in the eye of the storm, right?
In the eye of the storm. And it's much easier said than done, but that is why we work so closely together. And so right now is I've actually, how it looks is, really working privately with these mothers because I feel like it's a very delicate space.
So is that on the phone you do?
It's online or on the phone. And that's the Calm Mama program that I have. And so it's really nice because when we're speaking one-on-one, it's like, it's a very safe space so that we can work with this delicate, fragile space to start. And then as we can build and build and build from it, so much more starts to expand.
It's a very intimate journey is finding our center.
Yeah.
I love that. So moving forward from that, what is kind of that next place that we go? Once we feel like, okay, I can find this calm center place and I have it. I can find it when I'm in the bath at night, right? I can find it when I'm at yoga. I can find it when the kids are at school and my house is quiet for a few minutes. Then how do I actually leak this feeling out when I'm with the kids or said people that drive me bananas?
So it's funny. It's almost like, some people will say it's almost like magic, but it's funny because it kind of is, but there's science behind it. But when you know this, because you talk about this so much, is when the more we think a certain way, the mindset, and when that starts to almost become ingrained to all the cells in our body, it's so much easier to find it. So, and I'm not going to lie, like people are like, oh, are you this calm person all the time? I'm like, no, this is my personality. But I mean, there's times when I yell at the kids because I am, it doesn't take 50 times for me to ask you to do something. Or, when the noise level just gets so loud and I feel like I'm going to lose it. But the thing is knowing that in those moments is how to really stop myself, catch myself, and even take that second to breathe, to know. And then with what I'm going to be doing next is align myself with how I want to feel. So in that moment, do I want to feel crazy and angry
I'm going to regret saying this
and then
or doing
feel
this.
regretful 2 seconds later? Or in that moment, do I want to feel like, hey, I got this and I'm going to be happy with how I dealt with it, even if they're still crying and on the floor having a meltdown, but who am I in this moment? So,
that's a great question. Let's stop there for a second because I like that question. Who am I in this moment? Yeah. That is so good. I think that's one of those questions that we can always ask ourselves, right? And when we get into these emotional situations or times where we feel that overwhelm, we always look outside ourselves and want to blame something. It's like, oh, this job drives me crazy. This guy drives me, this commuting drives me crazy. This messy house drives me crazy. But actually, we're driving ourselves crazy and letting these things contribute to it.
Yeah.
Right? And when we can ask that question in any moment where we're being driven crazy, it's like, who am I in this moment? Oh, I'm a calm mama, right? And when we can say that about ourselves, then we're more likely to act like that, right? Because I'll talk to fit mamas and I'll refer to them as fit mama. Like I'll be sending messages on Instagram or Facebook. I'll say, hey, fit mama, blah, blah, blah. And how many people will say to me, oh, I'm not a fit mama yet, but I'd like to be. So I want to follow your program or do this or whatever. And this is the backwards approach, right? And so what you're saying, and I can see that, is we believe that we are this calm mama or fit mama or whatever, and then we act in accordance with that.
Yeah,
right?
Because, all these things, and we see it all the time if you're on social media or all these posts out there, it's, things, energy goes where attention flows. Things like, I said it backwards, but, things like that. And it's so true because it's like, if I keep telling myself, I'm out of control, I'm an angry mom, I'm this, that's who I'm going to be. But if I tell myself, I've got this, I'm good, I can handle this.
I have help, I just need to ask, I can
do
this.
And honestly, sometimes I get text messages from my clients being like, I'm on the train, my kids are driving me crazy, I have a juice box spilled all over my blouse, like all this stuff, and literally, sometimes it'll take just one sentence. And for one, I said, your kids are so lucky to have you there with them because they have a mom like you. And
I just got full goosebumps. Oh, that's so nice.
And then her response was something like, I think she said, wow, thanks. And then that's it.
And it shifts the whole experience. Shifts.
And so, but imagine that you don't need me anymore to be reminding you these things, but they're now fully ingrained in your psyche. Because too often what's ingrained in our psyche, and we believe to be the truth when it's not, is what we've grown up hearing. Right?
Which is 99.9% negative.
Negative
because that's true. What stands out. I mean, that's what stands out. All the people could have told you you're amazing, but you remember one boy, Johnny, from grade 1 who said this, and he's etched in your mind for life, right?
And I was just writing a talk, actually, a little while ago.
Yay.
And the example I gave was, and I think as women we can relate to this, is you put that effort into going out one night, you get a cute dress on, the cute lipstick, did your hair, you walk into the room feeling good about it, and then people are like, you look amazing, you look so cool, you look amazing, give you hugs. But then there might be one person who gives you a funny look. Or one person who makes some remark that you're like, what does she mean by that? But what do you remember at the end of the day?
Awful.
You remember, why did that girl say that?
Yeah.
Why did that person look at me like that? But you didn't remember the 25 other people who told you look amazing. So it's kind of like, why do we, like you said, we fixate on that one negative, and then we hold it, and it becomes
true.
It becomes true.
Yeah.
And I feel like as moms, we do that all the time. Yeah. That one person who said, why are you doing it that way? It's like, why am I doing it that way?
And we question everything. It spirals.
So
how do we then memorize the idea that we are the ones that we can be in control?
the second pillar that we work on. So first is presence, the second is peace. Because when we're able to now transition all that we learn from the presence, and now we go into, now how do we get that peace of mind? Because we're going to get thrown these lies or these things to us all the time.
Yeah.
But how do we now have that peace of mind that's like, no, you're able to now sift through these thoughts and pick which one are mine and which ones are the ones that were given to me that I'm not going to keep.
Good one.
So we create that peace of mind, but we also create more peace and harmony in the body. So because of my background in learning, using clinical nutrition a lot in helping people to feel good, but also how to move the body to feel good again, we need to get these things going, and we know how much movement does for our brain health and how we feel. So all these things combined can create this harmony in our body again. So we can start to think clearly, get that peace of mind, and start to feel more connected again, so that we can start restoring how we feel. Recover.
That sounds so good. And I can't tell you how high peace is on the list of desires for fit mamas and for moms in general. I mean, humans in general too, going, oh my gosh, right? We feel all this negativity around us all the time, and it feels good to be at peace. And it's one of those things where you don't want to rely on the external circumstances to bring you peace. Well, when the world is at peace, I shall feel peace, right? We're going to wait till hell freezes over. But we can be that now. And I love that you bring that people back to this moment.
And it's a piece of it. Like, it's one of those things that often there's this illusion that peace means life is perfect.
True. And we
But
know
it's
there
not.
is no perfection. So it's this constant striving that never leads us anywhere.
But really, peace is a feeling. So, and the reason why, and when you just said, this is what people want, but then they're looking so externally and looking for
it in the wrong places.
This grand thing. When I was going through my phase of just being burnt out and overwhelmed and not feeling like myself at all, I asked myself the question, what is it that I actually want? And not
valuable.
Not physical things, not a bigger home, not a better car. It was, I just want to feel at peace again with myself, because I was struggling so much with people telling me I'm not doing it right, or I should get a job like this, or I should be doing it this way. You should be sleeping the baby this way. And there's so many shoulds, but I'm like, I actually think I'm doing okay.
Yeah.
And having that piece of, just because my way isn't the same as your way, it's actually still okay. So there's a huge element of trust, self-trust, self-compassion, and the biggest that I talk about is actually self-empathy.
Yes, talk to us about that. I love that. Go on.
So, I mean, if someone you love, like your best friend, your person in life was struggling, and they came to you and it's like, I just feel like I suck as a mom. I feel like I can't do anything right. I feel awful. Like, I didn't think it would feel this way. What would you tell that person? Right? We would tell that person, you're amazing. You're doing an awesome job. How can I help you? Do you like all these things? And you'd probably embrace them.
Totally.
Right?
Totally.
And just be there. Sometimes you wouldn't even say anything, but just being there with that person as they're feeling this, not being judgmental.
Yep.
But what if we actually turn that around on ourselves? And gave ourselves that empathy of feeling that. And, I felt like for myself, that was a difficult thing because there was so much self-criticism happening. But the minute I turned it into, why would I talk to myself like this?
Totally.
And you talk about
Makes
this all
no
the time,
sense.
where everything
Exactly.
starts with love. So if we can't love ourselves and speak to ourselves with love, then what do we got?
Well, and it all of a sudden changes from feeling unsupported, feeling alone, feeling frustrated and overwhelmed, like no one's here to help me and this is all on me, to when you have that self-empathy, it's like you do have your own best friend with you, right? And you are there with yourself and you are saying, holy shit, this does suck. Can you believe this is actually reality right now? Let's commiserate for a minute together and be in those tough emotions and then say, hey, we got this.
Exactly. It's the non-judgmental understanding that, you know what, but I'm here with you. Because the last thing you want to hear when you're struggling is someone coming up to you and saying, "Oh, well, if you would have done it this way,
Oh, God.
then you'd be fine right now." Or why don't you? And that's the one thing is we talk a lot about is the words that we choose to use. You know, when we ask ourselves, start a question with, "Why do you do it this way? Why aren't you doing it that way?" We're already placing this judgment of it could have been done better, right? So then we start shifting the words we use, the conversations, the dialogue, the mental dialogue, because one of the things that I feel so strongly about is that one of the things that's hurting us the most when it comes to self-worth is we put too much power into the perception that others have of us.
Even people we don't care about, we don't
People we
like,
don't
but if
care
they
about.
are the ones that we're judging ourselves against, it's nuts, right?
It's this power of this, or the persuasion of external perception that gets in the way of, but what is our own belief? What is our own self-belief?
Yeah.
So all encompassing in that is when we talk about how do we now get that piece back?
Yeah.
Even if the world around you looks like it's crazy.
Yeah,
You know?
that comparison thing, that comparison really, it really keeps you stuck. It's looking at others and saying, well, they're probably thinking this.
Yeah.
Well, they're not thinking this. I mean, we have a saying in our family, it's called nobody cares. And when you're coming in with your own bad hairdo or you haven't slept or your makeup's not there or whatever, nobody cares. Nobody's looking at you. They're all worrying about their own selves.
But if they are, because there are people like that who do.
Yeah. And they'll be happy to voice it.
Reality is there are people like that. And if they do, who cares? Like, that's the one thing that, and I'm still in this journey, learning this myself. I've come a long way, but it's that whole thing of really what they think is none of my business. If they think my hair sucks, then whatever.
Why do I care?
Why am I letting it eat me away inside and ruin how I'm feeling?
So true. So true. Another one of those things of in 5 years, will this matter? Right. And, you know, I talked to a lot of people recently and I have a few really good friends of mine who were diagnosed with cancer really early in their 20s, 30s, you know, and I love to learn lessons from people who have been, you know, to a different place in their lives than I have. And one of those things that they realized was I really narrowed down what I cared about and what was going to affect me and not affect me anymore, right? And we can choose without having to get sick or have our life flash before our eyes. We can already start to, you know, look at our value system, right? Look at who we are in this moment and say, this is what matters to me. And that is what I'm willing to give up and say, to hell with it. I'm not going to try and please them or do that anymore. And there's such a liberation that comes with that, eh?
Yeah, and that's a perfect example of when we say that you pick what your rock bottom is. You don't have to, you know, be super ill and feel like, and then start reevaluating your life.
Yeah, I mean, as a naturopath, I'm sure you see people at all stages of
so I'm
sickness.
naturopath now for like over 10 years. And, you know, sad to say, but it's true, is that I'm usually the last resort. People have seen 10, 15 different doctors. You know what? Someone told me to go see a naturopath. You might be able to help. And it's funny because within that first maybe 10 minutes there's breakthrough. There's tissues and tears and all of this. And it's because of someone is there actually listening and asking the questions that no one thought to ask. But the question that actually makes you look inside without feeling that you're unsafe to do so, right? It's a very safe space because that's when you're going to figure out what does my body actually, what is it saying, right? Yes. And what is it saying? And that's why I say is like you can pick when your rock bottom is. Like I hit a point when I was just over it. I could have gone more.
Yeah,
I could have gone deeper into the hole.
Yeah.
I could have really run myself to the ground, but I chose in that moment. I was like, I'm over feeling this overwhelmed, burnt out, yelling at my husband for no reason and him being so understanding about it. But I'm thinking, what if he wasn't? How are we going to survive this? Because I was crazy town for a little bit.
You and all of us.
And it's just like I said before, it's like that fragile, delicate glass house of emotions. But when we know what to do with that and release the pressure and start to build that strength back up, it's amazing what can happen.
I love that. I love that. It's so true. And it really is just like a muscle, right? And I talk about this with emotional fitness is like, okay, I have to go to the gym, lift some weights and grow these muscles. I have to go running and, get my heart stronger, my cardiovascular system. And the more you do that, the stronger these muscles are going to get. But the value that we place on emotional fitness or hiring a coach such as yourself to work on our emotions, emotional regulation, self-regulation, connection to self isn't as valued. And same thing as we don't value the time, right? We may say, okay, yeah, I've joined this gym and I'm going to these classes, but we won't schedule 15 minutes to sit quietly with ourselves and breathe in a way that starts to become more our norm instead of a hyperventilating because I'm overwhelmed breathing. Like I notice that when I breathe consistently every morning for, I like to meditate for about 45 minutes to an hour in the morning, and I'm doing deep breathing in that time, and it starts to trickle out. The more consistent I am, 20 minutes, it trickles out a little bit. 40 minutes, it trickles out more. And when that becomes your norm and you schedule time to practice your own emotional regulation, it makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah. And it's like that example you gave with like just the muscle memory and how our body remembers, our mind remembers. Every cell in our body has memory.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's okay. And I think way at the beginning when we were talking, I was like the 3 reminders that I always say. And then the last one I didn't get to, but the third reminder is that just because you have a bad day doesn't make you a bad mom. It's about how to get back to that center. So and our body remembers. So the funny thing is the more you practice it, the quicker you bounce back to it.
Yeah, totally.
So,
well, I say the body is the subconscious mind. Right? And 20% of what we're doing is conscious, 80% is subconscious. So when we can consciously practice the things that we subconsciously want to do, which is in those heated moments, what comes up is our subconscious desire to scream our head off because we've suppressed it every other time we wanted to scream, right? But it's that practice. And I love that you've created a program for people to actually practice being a calm mama, right? And go through those stages. So we have the first one was presence. The second one was peace. So what is the last piece of the puzzle that you talk about?
Last piece of the puzzle. So I gave it the word power. But that power word is a lot. And so for every client, for every mother, woman, person, it looks different. I mean, when I talk about one of the first questions I ask in that phase, that last phase of the program is, what does power look like to you and what does it mean to you? Because it's okay, whatever it looks like and feels like to you is okay, and we're going to work on that. Because my definition of power in my life, how I feel, how I want to feel, might be completely different from yours, and that's okay. Because this thing that power needs to be loud, and power needs to be really bold, and it needs to mean that
Or obnoxious. Yeah.
Or that I need to be this, what does success look to me, and all these things. And we really work that out because I feel like as women we have so much power, but we aren't sure yet how to use that and what that looks like.
And we give it away then.
And then we give it away. And when you become a mom, it's true. Like, why do people call mothers superheroes? You're a super mom, you're a superhero. Because they're so capable.
Yeah.
But then sometimes when you transition into motherhood, there's this phase that gets skipped of, now how do I repurpose these things so that I don't lose myself? But now motherhood fits in there too.
Let's talk about that losing yourself. Maybe just touch on that before we finish up, because I know that women are feeling this way. I know that moms, after they have 1, 2 more kids, it's how easy is it to get lost in the shuffle, right? I have to do this, I have to take care of these guys and drive him here and do this and cook and buy all the food and organize the meals, and this guy doesn't like that and cook him this. it's so much, and we do lose ourselves. We go, how do I find the time to go to the gym and all that chaos? Who's going to do all that, right? So let's talk about that for a bit.
Yeah, and it's intricate, and like you said, it's really intricate, complex, but it's worth it. And I always say that. I'm like, people sometimes are scared of that last thing of like, okay, well, in reality, how am I going to feel the way you say I'm going to feel when my life is crazy? There's no room for me in here. And I always say, if you commit and devote this time for yourself and invest in yourself, that time investment in yourself, it is worth it.
Absolutely.
Because that whole power shift of, not losing yourself comes with learning presence, getting that peace of mind, and knowing that it's okay to have these thoughts and these dreams and be someone that's actually outside of being mom. And it doesn't mean that, and some people might hear that, and I've heard this from people who, say, well, I'm mom 100%, and I feel guilty if, whatever. And the thing is the women I work with, and me included, and I know you too, is we love being a mom. From the time I can remember, it's when people ask me, what do you want to do when you grow up? Well, I'm like, I want to be a good mom. I want to have this like house full of kids. And okay, now I know 2 is good for me. But I was like, I want to have this house full of kids. I love being a mom. I love kids, all of this. And so I love it. But I didn't know how hard right now in our culture it would be to be a mom, but also have those dreams for myself too. And that's where the power piece, because we can now repurpose things, renew this feeling according to like on our own terms, and that it's okay.
And we can say, I want to pursue this now, or that's cool, great, I want to focus on mom right now, and that I can pursue later too. Yeah, either way, it's okay. And I think I like that you are including that piece of judgment towards ourselves, that if we create a non-judgment zone with ourselves, that's right there a huge opportunity. Yeah,
and it's much easier said than done again, because the judgment has been ingrained in us for so long.
We are conditioned to judge because we've been judged. We've chosen to take those voices that other people have said to us and say it even louder in our own heads.
Yeah, but this is why this system works. Because if you figure out presence, that peace within you, then when you get to the power piece, there's so much less power being given to this outside judgment and criticism.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah.
And so the things that people say still might hurt and still might sway you. And I always say this about like this analogy I use this analogy with when I talk about adaptogens, which are plant medicine that helps your body adapt to stress, but it comes back to this too. It's like, plants, we're all different plants and trees. We all look different, but the environment around us could make us sway, or the branches move and weigh heavy on us. But then it's about how do we get back to that root, that center again. And so it always just comes back to that about not losing yourself in it, because we can have all these different branches to us, but when we feel at peace with what that looks like and how we're doing it, then who is to say that that's not okay?
Yes. And we have that confidence that you talked about, right? Yeah, it's like, okay, you think that's weird that I'm doing that? Great, think that. And I'm not fazed by that anymore, right?
And it's a much deeper emotional level confidence than what we tend to think confidence is, which is more outwardly.
Totally. Well, I'm even, while you were talking, I was picturing something that many women do in a day is go buy groceries, right? Or go to the store, have to pick things up. And we get to the checkout, and I know for us here in Canada, at the Shoppers Drug Mart, the pharmacy, wherever, at the grocery store, there's magazines, right? There's magazines of all, scantily clad women, or this kind of, whatever story about the royal family or this and that, right? We are exposed to these media, not to mention every time we go on Instagram, Facebook, etc., of opportunities to judge ourselves against the people in the magazines, the people who are putting themselves out there half naked online or whatever. And we can choose in that moment to give our power away and feel bad about ourselves and tell ourselves we got to change, or we shouldn't be this. Then we look at our grocery, go, oh, why did I buy this again? I'm being bad, and all this whole thing. And what you're talking about is simply just offering them a way out, right? It's just saying, hey, I'm not going to do that because I'm not going to give them my power away, right? I'm not going to look at this and say, oh, now I have to change. It's being in that moment and, maybe breathing through it, as I'm always talking about, and just noticing that, yeah, okay, wow, I used to judge myself every time I'd look at this royal family or whatever. And in this moment, I actually don't care, or I'm not worrying and letting that faze me.
Yeah.
That's freedom.
Freedom. Yeah.
Seriously.
It is.
That feels good.
It feels good. And it's, I can almost hear voices of moms that I've spoken to saying, well, that sounds like, I know it sounds so simple, but it's so hard.
Let's talk about that. It is. It is. My mom even says that. She's in her 60s now. She goes, but I've been this way all my life. Okay, so do it again for the next 60 years and let's just let it be, right? Or what? What can we do to actually change it?
You create the change. And this is the thing is, but the creating the change doesn't mean you just read a line and your whole mindset's
Yeah, it's not a one-hit wonder.
No, or you're going to snap your fingers, do one meditation and feel like, okay, why don't I feel any different? It's a process.
Practice.
And it's like when your mother said, but I've been like this for my whole life, then it makes sense. But there's also hope there.
Yeah. Well, neuroplasticity shows alone that we can create new neural pathways until the day we die.
This is the thing. I'm like, and science is so backing this up now, and it's everywhere, but it's our choice if we're going to pay attention to it or not. So we're either going to be stuck in this way and feeling like this way and letting it break us down internally while on the outside still la la la, smiling and being fine, or make the choice to figure this out, do the work, but do it in a supported, safe, empathetic way.
I love that.
And then feel the difference.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And you do have such a great group online, and we're going to link up that in the show notes and help people get in contact with you, because you are such an inspiration. I'm so grateful that I know you. And this has been really valuable. Thank you, Sindy.
Thank you.
Is there anything else you want to add or say before we finish up this podcast to the Fit Mamas?
No, I just want to say thank you. Like, I feel like, your podcast with getting messages out there so that even people can listen and hear, because that's also such a safe way to get the message across, whereas people don't feel like they're being, I don't know,
it's
like
too much.
influenced by so many external things.
Yeah.
And it's such a great way to help. Because I feel like that's the thing. In a time now when village to raise a family is scarce.
Yeah, and you may not have that physical village, but the podcast does offer that opportunity. So thank you. I'm glad that you can see that. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen.
Oh, thank you. And we will talk to you next week, Fit Mama. Namaste. And there we have it, Fit Mamas. That was my interview with Dr. Sindy Shin, the Calm Mama expert and creator of the Calm Mama method. That wise talk that we had about the peace, the presence, and the power in your motherhood journey is such a valuable one. And if this was valuable to you, I encourage you to share the information, share the podcast, go and subscribe, write a review for us, because this helps get Fit Mama into more Fit Mama hands around the globe. We appreciate you being here today. I am so grateful for you, Fit Mama, for being a listener of the Fit Mama podcast. This work into your workout is designed to help you enjoy your motherhood journey. Have a great day, Fit Mama. Namaste.